Franklin, Saint and Officer Nixon. This is going to come to a boiling point at some stage. Gustavo and Reed get revenge, and the journalist Irene is digging deeper for a blockbuster story that will surely get her killed at some point. I'm diving deep into everything we saw in episode 3 of Snowfall, so welcome back to MovieBot. Let's talk about Snowfall season 4, episode 3. So I hope you're all doing great, and welcome to the review and recap of Snowfall season 4 episode 3. And if you haven't seen the review and recap for episodes 1 and 2, then I will leave the link down below in the description and in the comment section. We're back to weekly episodes after the double bill last week, and the first 2 episodes I have to say started off really fast. I don't know whether it was just because we got 2 episodes on premiere, but they were really fast paced. Episode 3 was more about building the stories for what's to come with Franklin and Officer Nix and Irene the journalist. But first, if you're new to the channel, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Snowfall related over the next 2 months before Power is back on our screens. But this episode literally kicked off from where it left off last week with what happened with Hernan being killed by the new chief in charge, who similarly to Officer Nix was on a bit of a power trip, but were just with Gustavo and Reed instead. And unfortunately for him, he never really knew who he was dealing with. Gustavo is one of my favourite characters of Snowfall. He's a savage character, but also someone who has heart. Gustavo wants blood, and rightly so. Hernan was family to Gustavo. Fuentes wanted 100,000, and nothing Reed would say or do would stop him until he dealt with every single person involved in Hernan's death. Reed said that he'll handle this, but not this way. Gustavo said he wanted blood, and he was gonna stop at nothing until he got retribution. So the next time we saw him, he was outside the station, locked and loaded, and he was ready to go. Of course, with Reed being a CIA agent, he just couldn't let this happen, and that's why he had Gustavo brought to this warehouse with the DFS's help. And where Reed finally told him who he really was, he was with the CIA, and now Gustavo is too. And of course, all Gustavo could do in this moment was laugh. Reed, or should I say now Teddy, after Gustavo found out that Reed's real name is Teddy McDonald. He told Gustavo, a drug dealer who was smuggling weapons to fund a war. And how else did Gustavo get away with killing a DEA agent? Which is true, Gustavo killed Lorena in season 3, which is probably one of the most satisfying kills in Snowfall. Also was so cold-blooded, and Lorena deserved it, but Reed said how else did he think he got away with killing Lorena? Now they found out who killed Hernan, where they lived, where Fuentes the chief in command would go, but they needed to send him a message, and they needed to send him to his safe house. And how also did this was savage. It was literally what I said earlier on in the video, how Gustavo is someone who's a savage but someone who has heart, carving 100,000 onto Carlos's skull, sending it directly to Fuentes, which they knew then would lead him to hiding out in his safe house, and that's where Reed and Gustavo attacked. It was the scene that we saw in the trailer for this season where Reed and Gustavo were getting locked and loaded, ready for war, but now these two are on their own with this. Gustavo said that he'll follow Reed's rule as long as one thing happens, that he kills all of them, and oh did they do that. Calculated and timed, they killed a dozen or so men, maybe more. Gustavo got his man Fuentes, and he was never going to let it rest until he did. A savage who will always have heart. But let's talk Franklin, Saint and Officer Nix, because it was a quieter episode for Franklin compared to last week, but it doesn't mean that his trouble stopped here. Officer Nix has been on a power trip for a long time in my opinion, and it's only a matter of time before Reed is killed. And I think they're setting him up for him to definitely be killed at some point in the next couple of episodes. Franklin met Officer Nix at the beginning of the episode where Franklin told him that he didn't take too kindly to him turning up at Alton's shelter, but Officer Nix in response was he thought that Franklin tried to get him killed by sending him to Scully's place to round up the guys involved in the Inglewood shooting, but Franklin gave Officer Nix a clear warning. Don't ever come after his family again. And Franklin seriously put Officer Nix in his place right here. He told him that he had something on him 4 months ago, but it won't stick now. He decided to take the money, and now he needs to do his job and keep his mouth shut. Officer Nix just wasn't going to take this sitting lightly, so he rolled up to Franklin's house and he arrested Sissy. Well, when I say arrested Sissy, this was just him being on a complete power trip. It was just a scene that we saw in the season 4 trailer where Sissy was being arrested, but we didn't know what for and why. But it was Officer Nix coming after someone that Franklin loved because Franklin took away someone that he cared about, and that was Andre. Earlier on in the episode, Franklin gave Officer Nix a clear warning to never come after his family ever again, and he wanted to show that no matter how much power Franklin has from the powers above, he isn't scared. And even though Franklin may be paying him a lot of money, it doesn't change the fact that Andre is now dead, and it's not going to change what's happened in the past. These two will definitely come head to head at some point. Officer Nix took Sissy to Andre's grave instead of the station, but didn't really tell her anything that she didn't know already. But this actually backfired on him. He was pulled into the office, set straight, and he's been pulled off the street and now transferred downtown to the evidence room, and we'll know that he's not going to take this lightly. Officer Nix at some point will take matters into his own hands, and the beef with him and Franklin is just boiling. It's just boiling every week, and sooner or later Officer Nix will do something that will force Franklin's hand, and it's only a matter of time before these two really do go head to head. But Franklin doesn't just have a problem with Officer Nixon, he has a real issue with Irene the journalist, the Jabari of Snowfall. She's digging deeper into Franklin Saint's business and finding out information for a story that could potentially make her story front page. She met up with an officer who also wants to see Franklin Saint behind bars, who revealed information that Irene couldn't find because this information has been buried. There is no evidence of Franklin ever being arrested, ever being sent to prison on killing Kevin. They had Lorena, an eyewitness, a DEA agent who went missing. There is no record of anything. There is literally no record of Franklin Saint ever being involved, ever being seen, because it's simply been buried, and the deeper she digs, the more she finds out, the more shocked she's going to be at how high this actually goes up. But it depends whether Franklin will let her dig deep enough when he finds out what Irene is up to, if he finds out what she's up to, or will she write her front page story that could not only be damaging for Franklin but also Reed and the government as well. So this is one to keep an eye on in the next couple of episodes. Now, there wasn't much of Leon and Franklin in this episode at all, but we did see a small scene with him and Wanda, and he still does care about Wanda, but he knows once the rock has got you, the person that you knew before is gone. And I just wonder whether this scene here when Wanda lost her tooth, I wonder whether she's actually realized that she just needs to come off the rock, and whether she'll turn around and clean up just like Mel did. We'll have to wait and see. Now, with the whole situation between Scully and Franklin and Manboy and Scully, they're making us wait. They're going to build this up because we never saw any of the blowback from last week's episode when Franklin's plan backfired on him. Manboy said to Jerome and Louis that it was all good when he was doing business with them, but since Franklin's come back, things have started to get a little shaky. Manboy is someone that they really need to be wary of, and Louis knows this. Louis said this last week, that he's smart, he's ambitious, and at some point Manboy will come for them just like Scully. And I'm sure if I'm not wrong, it looks like Manboy doesn't know that Scully is alive either, so this is definitely going to be a shock for him soon. But that was episode 3, a slower episode than last week, but last week's episode was really fast paced. They started with a real bang with the war between Scully and Manboy, and this week was all about setting up some key storylines with Franklin and Officer Nix, and the journalist Irene, who's definitely a dead woman walking, but not before she publishes something really damaging in my opinion. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section about episode 3. Where do you think this leaves Franklin and Officer Nix and Irene, who seems to be digging out new information every episode, and just your general thoughts on episode 3? Drop them all down below in the comment section and I'll reply to everybody down below. And of course, if you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Snowfall related over the next 2 months. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.